Hey there, First Christian. We welcome all of you to a place where we are first Christian. That's what we're about. We're following Jesus, and we're hoping that you're with us for the duration for 2026. Great things are coming. Mark your calendars for February 8th. That's next Sunday at 1:30. We'll see you here for our Vision events. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, and a lot of you know that I like to cycle, and it started there. I was 5 years old, and my mom and I and sister, we were cleaning out our family station wagon, one of those gigantic green station wagons. And I happened to find a dime, and I was ecstatic about this dime. And my mom said I could have it. And I said, "This is great. Can I use it to ride my bike to the convenience store?" And she laughed. She said, "Oh, yes, of course, sure. You can ride your bike to the convenience store." She did not think I was serious. But she didn't do the math. I'm 5 years old. I had this little 16-inch tire bicycle with training wheels. And so I went and got some other money. I got on that bike, and I made my way, the other part of the math equation, 2 miles out of our neighborhood and onto a busy, busy street. Boy, I mean, in today's world, I don't know about you, but we get worried about our world, let alone turning a kid loose in it. We watch the news, we pick up our phones, we read the online news, and we just don't know what to make of things. Can a government act in such ways? Do we really know what a company is doing? Do we have the full story? Can we know truth? And people just step back and say, what's one person to do? And what we do is we trust the meme that we see that suits our thoughts, affirms what we already think and believe. Maybe we believe what's on Facebook, Instagram, or Snapchat, one of the social medias, and we don't check more solid news. We don't look for views counter to our own. We don't entertain. We just kind of shrug our shoulders and consider that we're right. Sure, I mean, we can look at the misfortune of others. We can notice that people are dying and that there are diseases and natural disasters. But I mean, what's a person to do? What's one person going to happen to make a difference, to make anything change? Today I want to take a turn. I want to take a turn, and as we're thinking about our wheels falling off of our own life, I want us to take this turn. What about when the wheels fall off somebody else's life? What about when we look and they have the training wheels on where they need help? Their kids are in a mess. Their job is in dire straits. Their marriage is coming unraveling. What's our responsibility? Do we just step back and say, well, they're different from me. They're a different race. They're in a different part of the country. They hold to some things that I don't believe. Well, today, I want to get you to think about this in some fresh ways, some new ways. To think about others. And it might be dumb, what I'm going to say to you. And by dumb, I mean simple, even simplistic. But I'm going to press forward anyway. We've been looking at Jeremiah. He's been our guide in this wheels-off moment. And we know about Jeremiah. He received a call from God as a very young person, probably late teens, maybe early 20s. And the message that he got was not a great one. The message was, the end is coming. The end is coming for Jerusalem, the capital. The end is coming for Judah, the country. The end is coming. And the follow-up message is, you can surrender and live, or you can stay put and you're going to die. Now, this message is really a downer, because he goes on to say that, you know what? God is not going to come and rescue you. In fact, God is the one behind what's happening to you. God is the one causing this judgment. It's not a good message. I mean, if I call this series, "The End is Coming and You Will Die," you'd think, oh, what's up with Brady? I mean, where's all his positivity? Something's got him down a little bit. We gotta pick that guy up a little bit. It just wouldn't sit well with you to see that kind of a message, right? And yet, today we get a new minor character. I do want to have you stand. Let's stand for this from Jeremiah 38. I'm going to start in verse 7 and watch for a new character to enter the scene. Ebed-Melech, the Ethiopian, a eunuch in the king's house, heard that they had put Jeremiah into the cistern. The king happened to be sitting at the Benjamin gate. So Ebed-Melech left the king's house, and he went to speak to the king. My lord king, these men have acted wickedly in all that they did to the prophet Jeremiah by throwing him into the cistern to die there of hunger. For there's no bread left in the city. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Ebed-Melech is our new character. For those of you that are expecting and are looking for some birth names for your babies, I would like to suggest Ebed-Melech. Just add that to your list. It's a really good one. Yeah. You need some more grandkid names, right? Maybe just offer it. Ebed means slave or servant. Melech means king. So Ebed-Melech means servant of the king. I don't see a lot of excitement that this name is going to take off. Ebed is a minor character. He's an Ethiopian. He's a Cushite. In the Hebrew, he's a Nubian. He's somewhere from North Africa. Needless to say, he's not a Jew. He's an outsider. He's a eunuch, which probably just means that he's an official. The word can mean either. And his name, Ebed-Melech, is probably, well, it's probably not even his name. Ebed-Melech is a Hebrew word. It's probably that they couldn't even pronounce his Ethiopian name, and so they just said, that's the king's servant. Have you seen this before? I mean, you talk to someone who's an immigrant, and they kind of take on names like Frank or Karen that don't seem to fit their nationality, and you wonder what's going on, or a phone rep is that way. In fact, there was one hotel chain in the city that I used to live in where they mandated that all of their employees, wherever they were from, were to take an Anglo name. And I stopped using that hotel. This approach of just taking away people's names is probably what happens to Ebed. He's an outsider. And as an outsider, he hears that Jeremiah has been thrown in a cistern, that he's been left there to die, that he's been beaten. And Ebed's job is his name. He's a servant of the king. And so he serves at the pleasure of the king, right? And what he learns is that King Zedekiah is at the king's gate, which is really good news. Whenever the king goes to the gate, the king makes decisions. The people come, ask him to settle conflicts. And so Ebed leaves the king's house, and he goes to the street. And he goes to tell Zedekiah, the men that are your people have acted wickedly. They've dumped Jeremiah in a pit. They've left him to die. What? Do you grasp what's going on here? He's a servant of the king. He goes to his boss, the king, to confront him in public. He's risking his job. He's risking his position. He's risking his life. I mean, we know what should happen here. This is not going to end well. He's going to get fired. He's going to get dumped down in that same pit, right? Left to die right there with Jeremiah. I mean, there's not anything good that can happen, and yet this immigrant is bringing light to the reality of Jeremiah's mistreatment. Well, we do get one line from King Zedekiah. The big players, King Zedekiah and Jeremiah, are mostly not present. But look at verse 10. This is what Zedekiah says to his servant in public. Then the king commanded Ebed-Melech, the Ethiopian, take 3 men with you from here and pull the prophet Jeremiah up from the cistern before he dies. What? I mean, that's our jaws should all be dropping about what happens. I mean, that is surprising. This king is hardly ever bold, and yet here he follows what his servant tells him to do. We know how this should go, and it doesn't go that way at all. God must be at work in what's happening here. The story continues in verse 11. Let's read it. So Ebed-Melech took the men with him, and he went to the house of the king, to a wardrobe of the storehouse. And he took there old rags and worn-out clothes, which he let down to Jeremiah in the cistern by ropes. Then Ebed-Melech the Ethiopian, do you notice how many times he says that name? That outsider, and said to Jeremiah, just pull the rags and the clothes between your armpits and the ropes. Jeremiah did so. And they drew Jeremiah up by the ropes, and they pulled him out of the cistern. And Jeremiah remained in the court of the guard. We've received a lot of sparse words from Jeremiah. None. Sparse words here from the king, but we get the full-on story of the rescue. What Ebed does is he goes back to the king's house. He knows where to go. He goes to where the rag bag is. Do you have a rag bag in your house? Do you have the Goodwill donation pile? He goes and gets old clothes and takes them along with the men and the ropes. And he very gently lowers them down into the pit to protect Jeremiah from getting cut by the ropes as an old man, having preached this simple message for 4 decades. I spoke with a medical professional, and those of you that are in the field know that occasionally you're going to treat someone who's a convict, someone that might have an ankle bracelet, someone who might be in an orange jumpsuit. And sometimes it throws you off a little bit. And this person was talking about all the scarring and the rubbing and the irritation that was on with this ankle tracking bracelet. Maybe with a person trying to get it off, who knows? Well, Ebed is a different approach. He's protecting Jeremiah. He is taking care to do this very gently. And yet Jeremiah is still a prisoner. He's still an immigrant tribe. He's from the tribe of Benjamin, not from Judah. He's still going to be in prison in the court of the Gentiles. And what we see is that the major character of King Zedekiah, who has all the power, doesn't seem to act with power. In contrast to Ebed, who has no power and yet does the right thing. It's in this story the nations that come to the rescue. The nameless people, the unlikely one, the man who has everything to lose and nothing to gain that comes. Do you know what Ebed doesn't say? Did you see here what he did not say? Well, what's one person supposed to do? Well, can we really know if Jeremiah's word is from the Lord? I'm just a servant. No. Ebed saw injustice. He saw a passive king, and he went. He left the king's house. Do you think he looked back at the doorpost and wondered, am I ever going to come back to this king's palace again? I mean, he knew what was going to happen. I don't think this was just a geographical term. He left the king's house to go and do what he knew was the right thing to do. What about us? What are we supposed to do today? What from Ebed can we learn whenever we see other people whose wheels are off or who have the training wheels on? What are we going to do? Some things that I'd say here. A lot of it, sometimes these discussions talk about insiders and outsiders. We're really focused on are we on the inside or are we outside? And we assume that if we're on the inside, that God is with us. If you look closely at the story, God uses the outsiders to judge the insiders. God uses the nations. He uses Ebed to judge the rebellion of his own people. God, you see, is on the side of humans. He's on the side of humanity, and he will even use people that are outside his people to project his purposes. Okay. So sometimes we can play the inside game and we don't realize what God might be doing. Sometimes we need to realize that we can be wrong. We can be wrong. If God's going to accomplish his purposes, and sometimes those purposes are to judge us, then maybe, just maybe, we should act in line with the purposes of God. How about that? If God's going to accomplish his purpose one way or another, then what if we break with our own apathy, our own desire to protect ourselves, and be on the side that's humble, even when we're being corrected? Another thing I notice about this story is that position doesn't really matter. Position doesn't give you an excuse, whether it's a high position or a low position. Ebed did not say, I'm just a servant. I don't know that I could go and question my boss. I'm just the owner of this business. I'm just caught up in the wheels of the commercial machine. There's nothing more I can do. I'm sorry, employees, but I've just got to act like a normal business person. No. Position is not an excuse for inaction. Another thing that I notice is that we get to choose what we do. We get to choose how we will act. Injustice is something that happens on all levels. It's not just in the news, it's in our family, it's in our workplace. And we've got agency, we've got the ability to act, and it's time to claim that agency, to recognize that our role has certain responsibilities. Even if we're just a burger flipper, and there is no just a burger flipper. I was one. We have responsibility to act. We have choices. What I'd suggest in looking at this story is that maybe we copy Ebed. And this is the part that might seem simple. It might seem dumbed down. But if you look at how Ebed acted, I think it provides a guide for how we could act. Ebed saw injustice. He recognized it. He could see when things were not fair, to throw an innocent man down in a pit and leave him to die. He knew that wasn't right. And so what Ebed did was to speak up. He spoke up with humility. He spoke up knowing that he could be wrong. He spoke up knowing that he certainly might be corrected. There are times for us to speak up when we might still be wrong. We might not have the full insight, and yet we need to be able to speak up whenever we see injustice. In Ebed's case, he addressed power. That power was his boss, who happened to be the one who ran the country, right? And he spoke to power, not in a, let's go over to this quiet room, but in a public place. Ebed was one who was willing to take action. What I want you to notice about the action that he took is that he was doing it to be fair to others. He wasn't doing this to seek fairness for himself. He wasn't doing this to advance his own career. He was doing it to protect the justice of someone else. Now here I want to do something very difficult. I mean, when we look for an example of how we could copy Ebed, man, this is difficult, right? I've heard about people this week whose marriages are coming apart because of what's happened in the last 2 weeks, because one thinks one way and the other thinks another way. Not in this church, but I'm sure that it could be in this church, where views are so different. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I want you to press pause. Pause on what you think about immigration. Pause on what you think about political parties. Pause on what you believe about ICE. Press pause on these things. And you might be looking around saying, Brady, I don't know what you're talking about. I just don't look at the news anymore. I don't know what's going on. That's okay too. But the example that I'm going to give comes from the streets of Minnesota, where we've seen lots of examples that we could pick out of protesters that are protesting, of ICE agents that are being assaulted, protesters that are being beaten and jailed. We've even heard about church protests where people show up in church. We've heard about assaults being up in all these ways. But what I want us to think about is two people, Renee Good and Alex Preddy. These are two people that have died. And in these moments, what happens is that a lot of people blame. They want to find who's at fault. Let's blame this person, let's blame that person. They want to find the cause. They want to categorize people. And here's what I want us to do. We're pressing pause on these things, and there's 4 things I want to share. 4 things that I hope that we can agree on regardless of where we stand on a position. Are you ready? The first one is that death is not good. When people die, it's a time to grieve. When people die, it should be paid attention to. Here in this time, ICE agents have moved to be more than 4 times the number of police officers. Agents over the last year, from January 2025 to January 2026, have shot 30 people. They've killed 8. I had to update my numbers even from last week. People have been put into incarceration, and 23 people have died just by being in custody. Assaults on ICE officers have gone through the roof over that same year. Now, here quickly we run into a bunch of yes, but, yes, but, yes, but. I want to reiterate this first point. Death is not good. Death is something to be grieved. It's not what we want. A second thing, and again, I hope this is just very baseline level, life matters. Everyone's life matters. Do we value the life of a criminal? Do we value the life of someone who's accused? Do we value the life of someone who's an immigrant, a suspect, a protester? Are the lives of those folks any different, any more valuable or less valuable than a lawyer or a judge or a police officer? No, life matters, right? I mean, if we're honest, if I'm talking about this with a button pause and we're talking about anything else, this would sound so plain. Death is not good. Everyone's life matters. The third thing is that people have agency. People have the ability to choose. They can choose what they want to think. They can think differently than me. They can act differently than me. It's important for us to respect that all human beings have agency. They have a choice that they can make. They can believe things wildly crazy and much different from us. Fourth, we're all accountable. We're all accountable to some limits, to some laws. So even though we have this agency, we have the right to choose, to believe certain things and do things, our power is limited, regardless of our position, regardless of our rank and where we stand in society. And justice is not something that happens out on the streets. Justice is not something that's decided in a moment with a gun. It's decided with time, with space, with courts, with a sense of order and decency. With these four things, that death is not good, that life matters, that people have agency and choice, and that we also have limits, boundaries on that choice, I keep thinking about Ebed's rags. Do you? Ebed's gentle rags. Because I'm pulling these things straight from Ebed. Ebed was someone who saw the potential of death and he was grieving it. He didn't want to see it happen. He believed that life matters. And he used his choice, his agency, to go and take action. And he knew he would be accountable. He knew that most likely in that kind of structure, he might be at the bottom of the pit with Jeremiah out in the mud. If I take a little different approach on this, maybe a different example. What if you see a kid out on a busy street on training wheels? No bike lane, no shoulder. I'm sure that what goes through your mind is that kid has no business being there. I'm going to run this kid off the road. That kid gets what is deserving of him, right? I'm sure that's not at all what we think, right? At least I hope not, right? These are not the things that we think about. We don't say, they're going to get what's coming to them. That little ignorant one doesn't know what he's doing. Ebed chose to do what is good for others. He didn't think about his own death. He thought about the possible death of another person. You know what Ebed also did not do? He didn't sit back and say, when we all get to heaven, we just won't have to worry about this anymore. I know Jeremiah may die down in that pit, but it's going to be so much better for Jeremiah when he gets to heaven. Ebed didn't shrug his shoulders and say, well, what's one person to do? Or my least favorite one, it is what it is, which says absolutely nothing. These are passive. These are anemic. These are not Ebed-like. Whenever followers of Jesus see injustice, and what we only do is talk, or we only blame, or we only choose sides, what we're doing is not being human. We're not treating people as humans. We're not being humane to just say, well, they're just illegals. They shouldn't be bringing kids to the border anyway. They're getting what's coming to them. Instead, we need to be people that are given towards the way of Ebed, that we're aware that life matters, that death is not preferable, that we have agency and choice, and that we can choose to act. I kind of have left myself on that street, right? I haven't told you what happened. Yes, even today, many, many years later, I won't tell you how many, there is no shoulder on that very, very busy road. And yes, I did make my way not only through the neighborhood, but out onto that road. Just before I got out onto that road, there was a car that stopped and just kind of pulled alongside of me and said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Well, I've got my money. I'm going to a convenience store. My mom said it was okay." And they were like, "Okay." And I took off down the road. So what happens with my poor mom that I'm sure is, reliving this with high blood pressure and everything just to hear it today? Well, what happened was some neighborhood kids saw me, they talked with me, and they ran back to my house. And they told my mom, "Brady's gone to the convenience store." Now, this convenience store was 2 miles away, and I'd made it almost a mile away, 0.8 tenths of a mile away. And my mom got in that now clean, big green station wagon and tore off after me, pulling up beside me to pick me up and take me back to safety. I'm hoping in this message that in a lot of ways it's just almost dumb or simplistic to say to us as people of God to be human, to be humane. I hope it's at that base level that we can say, yes, Ebed shows us a different way to exist in this world because we've seen the way of Jesus, who shows us what God looks like, where God shows up as Jesus and is willing to suffer, willing to be told that he's not who he says he is, being willing to be incarcerated, being willing even to die, to show us the way to life, because our God is one that cares for others, not just for us on the inside, but for all people. And the least we can do is to treat death as something to grieve, to recognize that life is something valuable and precious that God gives to all of us, and that we are people with choice, with agency, with influence to act for what is good. Let's pray. Eternal God, you are the maker of heaven and earth, and you've made us, and we ask that you will continue to bring peace to your world, that you'll calm people from words and anger and hostilities and rhetoric, and that you'll bring people to negotiation, to reconciliation, to peace. God, may we be people that are following you, that are given towards action, to respect life, to know the definite negativity of death, and to be desiring to use our actions for your good and your glory. We thank you for the life that we share in Jesus. And we say together, through this one who lives and reigns with you in the Holy Spirit as one God, amen.